Hi, welcome to FESPA's Sustainability Spotlight video series. My name is Graham Richardson-Locke. I'm the Head of Associations and Technical Lead at FESPA, and I'm going to be your host today. So we understand that sustainability in the future of business success is paramount, and that our drive to reduce negative environmental and societal impacts are essential to our communities. We're providing information with the help of our guest speakers, thank you Bianca, that will support environmental best practice and enable you to make progress in your journey. So in today's video, I'm very pleased to have as my guest Bianca Seidel from Bianca Seidel Consulting, who advises businesses on ethical corporate management, sustainable management and design, corporate social responsibility in creative industries such as textile and fashion. So Bianca, I'm going to ask you please to tell us a bit about yourself and your experience, how you got to being in this job.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to talk to you today. And yes, a little bit about myself. I'm in this field of sustainability in the textile and fashion industries for more than 30 years now. I used to build up my own brand in the sportswear already in the beginning of the 90s, and it was always my passion to work and my inside feeling to make products on a sustainable way, to develop products on a sustainable way. So that's where I'm coming from, and I built up this brand for more than 14 years. And since 2005, I started working as a consultancy, as a consultant with my own office. I'm working with small, medium enterprises.
Yeah.
I'm working with designers to learn them about eco-design and sustainable design, which means how to develop sustainable products. And I'm also working as an international expert for sustainability in the textile and apparel sector. And there I'm working with small, medium-sized companies everywhere, but also with very big companies. Like, for example, at the moment, I'm in a project in Pakistan, which is very interesting, and I'm working with very big manufacturers.
Is that sportswear? Because I know that you have a lot of experience in the sportswear market.
No, I have both. I have home textiles and apparel, but it's really helping them, and they are on a very, very good way. This is something that I really have to say about Pakistan. They do so much efforts, and they are so open for progress and for developing things and for innovations. This is great. Sometimes if you talk to small, medium enterprises in Germany, it's a little bit like why we should change something.
Yeah.
And it's very beautiful to work with them. But those are very big companies, so like, for example, with 30,000 employees. So, and I help them to fulfill the requirements for a German Meta seal. Maybe we talk about this a little bit later.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting with the sort of transformation that's taken place in EU in terms of textile imports, you know, in the coming years, the businesses that are currently in a global manufacturing environment. So, you know, looking at larger factories across many countries, Pakistan and beyond, is that they are already very well experienced in producing high volume production at commercially appropriate pricing. So yeah, I'm sure that they're very well equipped in so many ways to continue, but now it's just looking at the transformation and social impact of what they do and how they report on transparency. So maybe this is a good point to kind of get into it. So our discussion today is we're gonna focus on how to achieve positive transformation and social impact, the sort of key questions and considerations. We have limited time, but what we aim to do is to provide some inspiration to go on and do further research on. So I think starting, customers aren't often aware of the social impacts from workers. They usually see price and style as the kind of critical things, but I believe that's changing. And workers in a global supply chains deserve to have fair, equitable treatment. So brands are using independent factories that limits their legal exposure and risk, but what we need to do is to look at how to progress and insist that brands social impact auditing extends throughout the supply chain, leading to more transparency that can genuinely influence the buying decisions for consumers. So maybe we can kick off around that as an area.
Yeah. So first of all, as I would like to say, many companies, many brands are already trying hard to improve the situation. Especially if we are talking about big brands such as H&M, such as the Inditex Group, all the big fast fashion player, let's say, which have been in the public spotlight since the accidents in Rana Plaza, then also in Karachi in Pakistan. It's all 10 years ago, and but they can no longer afford scandals, especially with regard to working conditions. This is something that we have to say, that and to see that there is a lot of movement already in the big companies, in the very big ones. So the ones who really do a lot, also produce a lot of fashion, and they really try to change something. And but the fast fashion business models and sustainability are simply not compatible. It's something, sustainable fashion and fast fashion is not compatible.
Well, they certainly don't address the reduce part of reduce, reuse, recycle, do they? And
yes, they do a lot already, and but the problem is, at the moment, still, it's the problem that the fast turnover with low prices always has an impact on the environment and working conditions. It's the same like in the food industry. I mean, this is very similar, if you buy a good beef, you pay. If you don't want to pay, you don't get a good beef.
Yeah,
probably. So therefore, all efforts are made to find new business models in this. And I'm talking about this because we always see that many changes are coming or are pushed only through the big brands.
Yeah.
Because they have the money for innovations, they have the money to push things.
And the sheer volume of products that they are responsible for the production of,
Yeah.
the eyes of the world are on them first, aren't they?
So that's what I wanted to say is all efforts are made to find new business models that are integrated into the current model, still fast fashion, because otherwise, or still a fast turn, because
Okay.
otherwise they have to change the whole business model.
Yeah.
And but it's mostly with an eye on the ecological footprint. You see? I mean, they are looking, of course, on the social side conditions. They try not to make, they have very big audits by themselves, because it's like if we are talking about a small and medium-sized brand, it's not that much in the eye of press, social media, and so on. H&M,
Yeah, you're right. H&M, Inditex,
like,
Nike.
it doesn't need 24 hours and then it's spread it all over the world.
Yeah.
So middle-sized companies, they can still swim a little bit. And I don't want to say nobody cares, but it's different.
They're less visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in these business models that they try a lot of things like second-hand sales, repair services, circular products. They are success, and if they are successfully integrated, it means that fewer, and this is very important now, fewer new products are manufactured.
Yeah.
Or supply chains are shortened. Because it makes little ecological sense to send products back to their previous countries of manufacture to keep them in circulation. And for me, this is where the real social fair transformation starts for me.
Yeah.
If we are really pushing new systems like circular economy, and this is pushed by the governments, at least, it is pushed in our consumer and industry country and nations.
Yeah.
But for me, the question is not only to talk about how it is right now, of course, it's very important that everybody is well paid and so on and so on. Griffin's mechanism included, and we have a big social compliance, due diligence in the brands and enterprises. But for me, the social fair, the real social fair transformation starts with thinking about what are we going to do with all the people if we are starting to shorten our value chains, our supply chains. This is much more because we are talking about cheap and low-skilled textile workers.
Yeah.
In the current manufacturing countries. And so people working in countries where there is no social infrastructure like we are having.
Yeah.
If we are unemployed.
Yeah, if you're not working, you simply have no money.
So in such a scenario, do we not also have, do we as the ones who went 30 years ago
to offshore our manufacturing at lower costs, yeah.
Or everywhere, in those low-cost countries, do we not have to take responsibility? No, not when all the new on the ecological side, business models are working.
And yeah, I think that things are always more complex in that, you know, we hear conversations around reshoring, you know, shortening the transport links within manufacturing, but you know, the transformations that are going to take place are going to take place over longer periods of time. And I think you're right. I think there is a, you know, a requirement for brands when they're considering either reshoring some of their manufacturing to, you know, to get an emissions benefit, that there is still, that it's very easy to do that with and neglect the social responsibility component. And I think that's where business is becoming more complex overall, is the importance of, you know, wealth generation to sustain any organization, coupled with not preserving the dignity of the people who are involved in the process of generating that wealth, and also ensuring that we're using our input materials responsibly, and we're paying consideration to the outflow, so effluent from factories. And you know, there is just a lot of things that we need to start actually being responsible for, to make genuine progress that leads us to being able to transparently show to consumers our benefits. And that's it's funny, within the printing industry, you know, we might be a relatively tiny component of a much wider supply chain. However, we all have the opportunity to do something to offer benefit. And in other conversations I'm having, we're talking about scope 3 reduction for brands, and you know, there is, but we can't just think about emissions reduction. We have to think about social value and the other components. I agree. I mean, I'm kind of interested to understand how we can determine whether the clothing brands we're choosing to buy from, or the fabric that we're sourcing, has been created in an ethical and sustainable manner. What would you give us in terms of tips to try and scrutinize that?
I would say this is relatively simple, because if I really want to do that as a consumer, there are various seals attached to the garments to orientation, you know. I mean, this is, and many labels already offer the possibility of tracking. I bought this week, I bought my husband his first circular jeans.
Okay.
And
from which brand?
From a German brand.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we so there is already the track on it for traceability, QR code, and you get all the informations about the product. Where is it coming from? There is a number, you can send it back, and so on and so on. I think this is already, I mean, no sustainability, no efforts in sustainability without digitalization.
Yeah.
This is the very big, and this is the difference to when I started in sustainable fashion more than 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because there was no digitalization.
Yes, you couldn't possibly have a unique identifier to go with clothing. It's funny, I was recently in London buying some clothes in Uniqlo, and in Uniqlo now you have RFID tags attached to the clothes. So you go in, and instead of going up to a counter and having someone check them through for you, you just throw them in a kind of a bucket, and then they automatically picks up all the pricing and everything. And that's a kind of a convenience to the customer, but it kind of suggests that actually there's something far more valuable in that RFID tagging, in that it can accompany the product from where it was made, where it's being shipped, transported, stored, and the whole opportunity to track and understand the time it takes when something has been made to by the time it's sold. You know, as you say, digitization is opening up a world of possibility for improved transparency, knowing who, where, and what was involved. I suppose systems like I had another conversation with Okotex that was really interesting, and you know, standard 100 and
made in green step.
And looking at how at a component level, zippers, buttons, you know, trimmings, all these things can be pre-evaluated, can be certified as being either less damaging to the environment, certainly not containing hazardous chemicals that will affect children and such things. So, but in terms of brands, is there anything that you're seeing directly with brands to promote the transparency, or do you think we're still very much in an evolving environment for that component?
No. What exactly did you do you want?
So we know that there are, you know, lots of brands are using organic cotton. Some brands will differentiate themselves from others by saying, you know, we use fair trade, we use renewable energy, we use organic cotton in our manufacturing. But I'm just wondering whether, as I discussed with Uniqlo and their RFID tags, whether you're aware yet of any brands who intend to do this at a large scale.
Yes,
or maybe it's something that will emerge later.
Yeah, I think it's already
happening.
Yeah, it's already happening a lot.
Yeah,
it's already happening a lot.
So many of us in business will want to know where to kind of begin in sourcing and discovering sustainable manufacturers. I know that textileexchange.com is a really rich seam of information. But what would you say about Textile Exchange, and are there any others that you would recommend our viewers to take a look at?
I mean, this is something that I also wanted to say to you, to the question before, because of the seals, you know, all the seals that you can find.
Yeah.
So all the seals, also like Okotex, for example, you have always the chance to go over the websites and search manufacturers or new suppliers, new vendors. You can always find this if you look at GOTS, if you look at Okotex, if you RUP, if Hicks, everybody, each and every seal. That's why you pay as a brand for it.
Yeah.
It makes you visible and it makes you findable. So, I mean, you can always build your supply chain but this is something that you have to do it in your company, that you say, okay, what do I want to be fulfilled?
Yeah.
Ecological and social, and it's always different because we have different seals, and some of them, like Fair Wear Foundation, for example, it's only on the social way. It's not for it has nothing to do with ecological.
Yeah.
And if we are talking now, okay, Okotex, now they have Okotex Step, and this is how they look into the labor standards and so on and so on. They are really looking on the social side, and there are others, they are only looking on the ecological side. So this is or like GOTS until now, but now that because now they get a new one, GOTS is renewed now, but GOTS, they have always the social and the ecological side, but it was always much more on it was always much more on the ecological
rather than
side.
social.
This is something you have to do by yourself. You have to do a questionnaire, you have to make a checkup list, you have to put it in your business model, and you have to say, okay, what is it I'm looking for? And then you start searching for the right seal. You know, of course, you can find help. And then this is something like GOTS. You go on GOTS and you say, okay, where, in which country I want to search for new suppliers. And then it's simple, and you just make the nation, the country into in the field, and then they say, okay, what you want, what you need, what are you looking for? But also, of course, there are, I mean, through this digitalization, and this is very important, this is the very important thing. So in addition to the seals, digital platforms are mushrooming at the moment, you know, because it's like, for example, Manufy, you find sustainable vendors. Scratch is something where it's a Dutch and German, and I mean, there are all over. This is something the young people, the younger generation, they really were the startups, let's say the startups, also Generation Z, of course, who wants to change something, you know, so they use digitalization as a possibility to push the change and to push transformation. That's why the business models and the ideas goes on platforms like this, you know.
Yeah, because they are ultimately very scalable and very, very shareable, aren't they? That's the key value.
So that's why, for me, very important is that I think it's important to realize that sustainable purchasing and sustainable development, product development, social and on the social and on the ecological side, takes time in product development, and then in the purchase it takes time, you know. You don't,
no one's going to get there in a few months, are they? It's
this is very, very different to the purchase practices like a couple of years ago. So and this is, for example, how I, from the beginning of my brand, I always was looking at exactly those points. And that's why it always took me much more. And I have a startup together with my husband, not a digital startup. We are importing French food, nice French food, and only sustainable food, of course. But it took me very long to build up my suppliers, you know, to find out who will be the one who's delivering. But of course, we must know there are also a lot of small vendors who cannot afford to have their own products audited by seals, you know, because it costs a lot of money. So they are not able to pay for so many seals. And this is a big problem. This is something that I can see in Pakistan. I also had a project in Georgia, but in Georgia it's only for the small, medium manufacturers, enterprises. But like in Pakistan, I feel very sorry for them, because each and every county is asking for another seal and for another certification, and they are really audit tired, because they need to fulfill requirements from brands. They have to fulfill it with so many different seals. This is very
criteria.
hard. But I have them. I mean, they have something like 30 different seals, and this is something I think we should change. We already have this with the green button in Germany. It's 1 meter seal, and it includes different seals. And the green button is on one side for the brands. It's on the social compliance. It's audited for the social compliance on the brand side, and the other side goes into the product. And under this, you have those social and ecological seals. But I think this is something that we should really find solutions also for the manufacturers, not to bring them.
It does kind of beg the opportunity for ISO standards in the future, doesn't it? I totally get your point. I think the rationalization of certification schemes, because there are so many that, of course, and in FESPA's, across FESPA's audiences, there are garment decorators, there are people manufacturing fashion, there are people who are doing graphics, signage, and it's a very broad range of users of both inkjet and screen technology for printing. And I suppose you have to speak to your customers and first and foremost discover which ones are the most important ones in their eyes, which ones are going to lead to securing your sales order book in the future, and also looking at whether or not within a cluster of customers, whether there's commonality in the certification that you should go for. So, for example, in the graphic sector, EcoVadis in Europe is becoming very popular. But yeah, I think it's great to see that there are lots of choices for organizations, but what we have to, and I've had conversations myself with people I know in fashion manufacturing where they say, I've just done this compliance audit for Puma, but now Nike, we have an opportunity with Nike, but we need to fulfill a different restricted substances list. And yes, there are only so many audits that anyone can withstand and continue to produce their garments. So we'll watch this space on that. I think it's an interesting point. I've got a couple of several other questions that I kind of wanted to ask you in our discussion today, and one of them is around ethical manufacturing and on the sort of raw material side. So, we were talking earlier, and where I favour organic cotton because I think that there are benefits in terms of soil health, and there are wider ecological benefits to that. But organic cotton, I think, is less than 1% of cotton consumed in the industry currently. And I'm really interested in your perspective as to how fast you think the transformation in terms of better agriculture or synthesis of fiber will transform us to a more sustainable position.
You mean, I mean, this is very hardly, it's very hard, to be honest, it's very hard to find figures about this.
Yeah.
So there are few studies, and they are talking about sustainable fashion at the moment is being only like 0.3% of the whole of the global fashion industry, which is poor. They announce a growth of to be around to 8, 9, 10%. But I think it's very important to see, if we go back to the problem is that I think it's very important to see that if we are talking about sustainable fashion or sustainable textiles, we always have those two lines. We have the ecological side, and this is measurable.
Yes.
You know, because it's easy. You can say
toxicology and things are.
No, you have tons, and you say that much tons of bio-cotton is sold in this year, and the emissions are going down. We need that much water, and so on and so on. This is very easy to measure. But the social measurement, how will you measure this? You can only measure it if you talk to Ökotex and you ask them and you say, how many brands, how many manufacturers has the step certification now?
Yeah.
You know, or HIG index, or, you know, all those on the or BCI or PSCI certifications. This is how you can maybe measure a little bit. But if somebody is, let's say, that's what I said before. So if somebody has a high ecological perfect footprint, he doesn't have to be social fair.
Yeah.
You know, and also, you know, I mean, you can be a very nice person, but you can still, I mean, okay, maybe then you don't use that bad materials, raw materials, but still you can use normal cotton, but you can be a very social and fair brand.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is why it's very hard to measure it. And then, as I told you, like the big brands like H&M and Inditex and so on, and Chibo in Germany and so on, they are all coming. They have the money to spend the money in their own audits. You know, they have their own measurements, and they don't have any certifications. But they do. They have a lot of impact, of course. But you can't measure it. You can only measure it on the ecological side. You can say, okay, how many bio-cotton, but to be honest, think about how many bio-cotton can we produce.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly the potential for what, you know, understanding the potential for introducing far higher levels of organic cotton into markets when it's grown in a global industrial agriculture environment is a tough question. I think we see things happening, but I suppose the bottom line is that true system change takes many decades, and in many respects, as you said earlier about things not, you know, us not being able to, as they say, build Rome in a day. We have to just start with honesty and transparency in declaring what it is that we are doing well, and that we talk about that with our customers, but that we're focused on the fact that we can only say it if we can prove it.
Yeah.
And so having the benefit of external auditing systems is valuable to that end. I wonder, I mean, another thing, in terms of fabric, I think materials like synthetic fiber, I think, in my view, are probably likely to continue to dominate global supply for a long time, because they may not be ecologically the preferred option in terms of emissions, but in terms of cost, and in order to clothe the world, it seems that we will, again, I as a consumer would favor I like the property of natural fibers. So, I like the wicking qualities of cotton, I like the insulation qualities of wool, but many of those kind of fibers are more expensive than polyester. So we're just going, it's important not to argue that one is necessarily better than the other, but we can be transparent about what we're using and where its benefits are, right?
I can tell you what happened.
Please.
What's my opinion, of course. It will depend very, very much on which innovations become marketable more quickly, because the trigger will be the circular economy.
Yeah.
This will be the trigger.
Yeah.
In other words, which systems for reusing production waste and goods return to the brands are better suited and establish themselves more quickly. Is it for synthetic fibers innovations, or is it for, and now let's say cotton, because we are using much more cotton than wool, for example. So the focus goes on the cotton side. And this is the thing, because we have this like in EU, in Europe, and we have, I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, me too.
But we are a very European Union is a lot of power, let's say. Sure. And we are having this strategy, this textile strategy, came out last spring, 2022, and it is the EU strategy was presented to make the textile industry much more sustainable by the end of this decade, which means 2030. So that's why the textile companies becoming in the focus of regulations. Also the due diligence act that we are having already in Germany. I mean, it's not only in Germany. We have something similar in France. We have something similar in UK. I mean, there are different due diligence acts so this is one thing that we have in mind for the textile industry on EU, because also the EU due diligence act will come in next 1 or 2 years. It will be there, and it will be much stronger than the German ones, because the lobby in Germany was very good in these times.
Yeah.
So and then you will have other very strict rules at the EU level to making clothes more durable, simplify recycling, reduce resources, resource consumptions, and so on and so on, you know. And this is how we will be pushed, or we are pushed already, not we will be pushed, we are pushed already.
To innovate and find the solutions.
Innovate, to find solutions, you know, and it's only the question which one we will have, which one is better, or maybe they are similar, you know, because if you, for example, if you look at the huge brands like H&M, they investing a lot of money in innovations. H&M Foundation. They invested a couple of years ago, I know them very well, in Sweden, Renewcell.
Yeah.
They take all the denims back, and they found a way to recycle cotton, that you are having a cotton yarn afterwards with a very good quality, because this was always the problem.
Yeah, because isn't it the fibers, every time you reprocess, they become shorter. Yeah,
it has been too short, and this was the big problem. So in Renewcell already found this. They take all your jeans back. If you send them your jeans, they are happy to get them. So this is one thing. And H&M Foundation was the investor for Renewcell. And now they have a similar thing for synthetic fibers. Yeah. So, and this is, in the end of the day, it's only the question from which system will give you the best quality in recycled yarns.
Yeah.
And so that's why we can, to be honest, I don't want to say today, yes, it's synthetic fibers or it's cotton fibers.
We don't know yet.
We don't know it, because at this moment, we are really in this moment of the change on the innovation side.
Sure.
You know?
So another thing that's kind of been in the air in recent times is, you know, China first, America first kind of policies in terms of manufacturing, and some predictions of manufacturing returning to the country of consumption. So, you know, whether the US will reopen its garment manufacturing industry, whether Europe will turn to maybe Turkey more than Pakistan, Bangladesh. Do you have a brief view on reshoring, and whether you think that reshoring is going to be a significant consideration, or do you think the global supply chain will largely remain similar because of the cost economies of it?
No, this is finished.
Okay.
This is finished because it will in this moment where we have much more speed in the circular economy with circular products, then the supply chains, this is exactly the same problem that's why I say we have to talk about a social fair transformation today.
Yeah.
Because then the supply chains will be shortened. And only, in my opinion, only the first cycles will be produced globally, because it sending used textiles back to the manufacturing countries, it doesn't make sense, you know. It's absolutely for your for your emissions, it's carbon emissions, it's for your reporting in carbon emissions, you know.
So the kind of remaking of usable fiber from at end of life and then spinning, we're likely to see that taking place on a continental basis, not a global basis. And I mean, it makes perfect sense that would.
I believe I think it's we will through and all. We need a lot of robotic and digitalization for this. And I have a very good example here in Germany, in Mönchengladbach. I don't know if you know CNA.
Yes.
They built up the first denim microfactory in Mönchengladbach.
Okay.
And you know, Mönchengladbach, it has been the textile industry area in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and so on and so on. And then they had very big problems because everybody went somewhere on the global countries, somewhere, manufacturing countries. And it was a very poor region. Close here, it's very close to Düsseldorf.
Well, it's the post-industrial kind of environments, isn't it?
No, they said, and CNA said, no, we are going to produce a denim again in Germany. And they built it up. They spend a lot of money in innovations, in robotic, in digitalization. And they built it up, the first microfactory again here. And they started now to produce. And I think this will be the future. And of course, through digitalization, we will have the chance to produce by demand. But now we are not having those small micro factories to produce by demand. We have some, and like Adidas and all the big players, they all try. They can try.
Yeah. No, I think I know from my own awareness that there's, you know, the opportunity for digitizing, robotizing production, you know, and this feeds very well into the opportunities with digital printing, with customization. That it's a very exciting area of business opportunity. Look, I think unfortunately I'm gonna have to we're gonna have to end today's video, because we could just carry on and on. I think Bianca, I'm very grateful to you for taking time to be with me today, and to giving us your insight on what is inevitably a complex topic, but you've given us plenty of things to consider when we're making our decisions. So thank you very much on behalf of us at FESPA and our audience for taking the time to join us. We hope that those of you that have joined us will have the opportunity to come and visit Sustainability Spotlight in the FESPA Global Print Expo on the 23rd to 26th of May at Messe Munich in Germany, where you'll be able to experience an innovative and sustainable material display, where there are lots and lots of new products being offered that have recycled fiber, reclaimed fiber from other product lives, or the agricultural waste, a whole range of things. And yeah, we very much hope that you'll come and find us there. Also, if you visit FESPA.com, keep your eye on the news and media section. You'll discover online content surrounding Sustainability Spotlight as it builds up. So I just want to say it's been a pleasure. Bianca, thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.